Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how we can make an Excel column chart in under 5 minutes. Now by make I mean how we can generate a chart from a table of data and then make some alterations to that chart to basically make it more presentable. Now the end result will be this chart here and our sample data is here. So this data here basically represents some sample data for weekly performance for 2 staff members, Jason and David. So what we're going to do is generate the initial chart that Microsoft Excel gives us, and that chart will be a clustered column chart. And then from that, we're going to make some alterations to get this chart here. Now, just to quickly overview this chart, it basically looks much more polished than your standard default chart that you get generated when you select your data and then ask Excel to make a chart from it. So the modifications that we're going to be doing to our initial chart basically involve making the borders rounded, making the bar colors less intense in terms of their colors, amending the title so that our title is more meaningful than what the initial Excel generated chart gives us. Then I'm going to show you another variation of a chart which I call a minimalistic version, and this is an alternative to this chart here, and it's something that you can consider in your Excel portfolio of knowledge when you're producing a chart based on the type of data that you're working off from and your end audience as well. Okay, so let's get started. Right, so what you do is you select all your data, then go to Insert, then under the Chart subsection of the Insert ribbon, you're going to click on this button here, Insert Column or Bar Chart. Then under 2D Column, select this chart version here, Clustered Column. Okay, so I'm just going to move this underneath and slightly expand the size. Right. Okay, so just comparing our initial version of this chart to our finished version, you can see that it's a bit more prominent now in terms of some of the alterations that we talked about earlier, how they look versus the original chart. So you can see that by making the borders rounded, the chart looks a bit more polished, and our initial chart title, well, in any case, you wouldn't normally leave it as it is like that. Even if you didn't make any of these changes that we talked about, most people, when a chart is generated, they always amend the title. The only emphasis we're placing here is that make sure your title is meaningful. Okay, and then if we talk about the bar colors, now these colors as it is are still good, the ones that Excel automatically generates. However, by reducing the intensity of the colors, it just makes the chart a bit more presentable and easier on the eyes. Okay, so we're going to do those modifications in order to get our final chart look here. So let's start with the borders. So to do that, you click on the chart, right click, then go to Format Chart Area, then under Fill and Line, you go to Border, and then the last option here, Rounded Corners, you tick. There. And as you can see, the corners are now rounded. Right, now, the best way to do chart titles is to basically look at your table of data and see if there's any point of reference of time for your data. So in this case, we don't have a specific week that this performance data has taken place in, but we do know that we do have a week's worth of data, i.e. 7 days. We also know that it's staff performance. Now, this is just sample data, folks, so the staff performance could be in relation to basically anything. In this instance, we're just going to go with the assumption that it's to do with responding to customer queries. So Jason, for example, on Monday responded to 35 customer queries, and David responded to 24 customer queries. Okay. So, just bringing it back to the chart title again, we know that it's staff performance and our reference period is a week. So, we're going to write staff performance for the week. Okay, so that's our title done. Now, the last thing we're going to do is just to reduce the intensity of the bar colors. So let's start with Jason's data set, fill and line, and then expand the fill section, then go to color. You can see you can adjust the colors of the respective bar group. So in this case, we're going to go for a much less intense blue, like that. Okay, now we repeat the same, but with David's data set. So click, then go to fill, and then select your less intense color. There. And that's it, folks. That's our finished chart. Okay. Now, another variation of this chart involves a more minimalistic look, and that basically means that we're going to take away some of the chart elements to just keep the essentials of the chart. Now, in some instances, this can make your chart easier to read, but again, it depends on the type of data that you've got. So, I'm going to show you what this chart looks like. Right. Now, if I just copy our chart, okay, and I'm gonna just zoom out and move this third chart here. Right, so this minimalistic chart involves, first of all, deleting the grid lines. So to do that, you just select one of the grid lines and then all of them get inclusively selected, and then press delete on your keyboard. There. Next, we're going to get rid of the y-axis values. To do that, just select that section and then press delete. Right. Then finally, what we're going to do is add data labels to our performance groups. There. Okay, now I'm just going to zoom back in. Okay, so this is our minimalistic chart. Now, basically what we've done is we've removed the grid lines and the y-axis values, and by us adding the data labels to the bars, we can still show the same message or the same performance data on the chart versus our original chart here. And the reason being is because the data labels basically enable us to still compare the values for both staff members. Now, in terms of which chart should you go for when you do a performance report, it's really down to you, your end audience, and your data set. Either of these charts are good for including in your reports. Speaking from experience though, what I would say is the more staff members you have, sometimes when you include the data labels, it can get a bit muddled in the chart. In this case, you're better off sticking to the grid lines and the y-axis values and not showing the data labels. And again, you can always go one step further, and for example, for your highest performer, if you have a chart of staff performance with lots of staff members, you could change that highest performer's bar color specifically just to illustrate that that's the highest staff performer, and vice versa, you can change the color for the bar for the lowest staff performer. So you can do that while still maintaining your grid lines and y-axis values. And similarly for minimalistic charts, it works best where you're just trying to show the essentials in terms of the take-home message of your chart. And taking this one step further, if you're showing staff performance for different weeks, for example, on one page, what you could do is take out the legend, put that separately as a separate graphic, and assuming it's the same two staff members that you're comparing week on week, then your chart is even more minimalistic because you're showing one less element overall for each chart. So there are ways in which you can continuously work to make your charts show much more essential data without compromising the take-home message of your chart. Okay folks, so that concludes this lecture. We have seen how we can take Excel's initial bar chart and in under 5 minutes do 3 alterations to the chart, which is basically changing the chart borders, reducing the intensity of the bar colors, and editing the chart title to make it more meaningful. Along the way, we also looked at another variation of our bar chart, which is a more minimalistic version, and compared some of the differences between both of the charts and uses for which either one could be good for. If there are any questions or queries, please reach out in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, that would be appreciated. And if you want to keep up to date with more videos like this, then please subscribe to the channel, that would be appreciated. And thank you for listening and watching, and I will see you in the next video.